Finally, you should make sure that you understand the 4 major steps in creating computer-generated characters. 2. To start, the animator constructs a computer model of a character that will eventually move and perhaps talk. 3. At this point, there is not much detail on the model. 4. Having looked at wireframing, let's turn to the second step, called shading.
Activity 10, page 38. Listen to the following lecture and follow the instructions in your book. Using computers to make movies.
When we think of how different people use computer animation, many different types of jobs come to mind. The airline industry, for example, uses computer animation to train pilots. Can you think of other jobs in which computer animation is used?
Military training?
Medicine for training surgeons?
That's right. And also think of engineers that use computer animation to design. In other words, there are several different areas where animation is used. When we think of computer animation in media, animated movies and movies with special effects come to mind. These days, movie directors rely more and more on the knowledge of computer animators. For example, computer animation can be used to enhance background scenery or create characters in movies. In fact, most movies we see today use some kind of computer-generated additions. Think about some of the movies you have seen in the past couple of years. Do you remember any computer-animated characters? Many animators used advanced software to create three-dimensional characters and machines in movies such as Toy Story 1 and 2, Jurassic Park, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Bugs Life, etc.
Activity 10, page 30. To make movies.
When we think of how different people use computer animation, many different types of jobs come to mind. The airline industry, for example, uses computer animation to train pilots. Can you think of other jobs in which computer animation is used?
Military training?
Medicine for training surgeons?
That's right. And also think of engineers that use computer animation to design. In other words, there are several different areas where animation is used. When we think of computer animation in media, animated movies and movies with special effects come to mind. These days, movie directors rely more and more on the knowledge of computer animators. For example, computer animation can be used to enhance background scenery or create characters in movies. In fact, most movies we see today use some kind of computer-generated additions. Think about some of the movies you have seen in the past couple of years. Do you remember any computer-animated characters? Many animators used advanced software to create three-dimensional characters and machines in movies such as Toy Story 1 and 2, Jurassic Park, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Bugs Life, etc. We see the characters in the movies months or even years after they were designed. But have you ever thought about how the three-dimensional characters are first created? That's our focus today. I'm going to explain the different steps in the process of creating these characters. CGI, or computer-generated imagery, processes are similar to traditional animation techniques, except that a computer is used instead of pens, pencils, and paper, or a drawing board. In addition, computers allow animators to create characters much more quickly than in the past. What used to take weeks may now only take days or even hours. However, much skill is needed in CGI. In addition to knowing how to use the technology, animators also need to have some artistic talent. The first step an animator takes is to build a computer model of a character that will move and maybe talk. The animator designs this model with lines and points in three-dimensional space on the computer. This is called a wireframe. The process of building the model is called wireframing. Look back on the first page of this chapter, page 26, to see the example of a wireframe in the first illustration on the left. At this point, you can see there are no details like color or texture on the model. By the way, there are other ways to create a wireframe besides designing one on the computer. Animators can also create a character by using a special digital pen to touch points on a model. The information from the pen then gets transferred to the computer. It's even possible to make a wireframe model from a real person by using something called a cyberscanner. For example, I want you to imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger's face right now. A computer animator can scan Arnold's big head with a cyberscanner to make a wireframe model that he/she can change depending on what the director needs. Why do you think a computer-animated Arnold would be useful to a movie director?
Special effects?
That's right. These digital equivalents of actors' faces can also be used for stunt doubles or other situations where the live actor will not be used. Whatever method is used, the wireframe construction is the first step for the computer animator. Let's go on to the second step. After the wireframes are created, the animator can add shading to the models. Keep in mind, shading is not the same thing as color. These are different shades of gray depending on the position of the light. Lighting, of course, is essential to create realistic-looking characters. This second step also helps animators detect problems that were not visible in the wireframes. Again, look back at page 26 to see a shaded version of the wireframe in the second drawing. The third, very important step is called rendering. That's RENDERING. Look at the third and fourth drawings on page 26. Since the computer-generated head, the second step, shading, still has sharp line edges, the animator needs to smooth out these lines to make it even more realistic looking. Sophisticated commercial software is often used at this point. This software was used in movies such as Monsters, Inc., Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and Men in Black 2. Each of the frames, and keep in mind, 1 second contains 24 frames, takes about 6 hours to render. Some frames in the movie Toy Story took up to 90 hours. By using software, the animator can add color, bumps, and hair to make the characters appear alive. That's 3 things: color, bumps, and hair. The advancement in the software has saved animators a lot of time. Finally, the rendered computer model can be animated. This includes a process called keyframing. As I said earlier, each second of film has 24 frames, but only 3 or 4 of these are considered keyframes. Do you remember what key means when we talk about note-taking?
Important.
Yes, you're right. These are the important frames during which an object changes its size, direction, shape, or other properties. In computer animation, the animator designs or chooses the keyframes, and guess what? The computer then fills in the rest of the movements and saves a lot of time. Again, this is done with special software. The computer does this all mathematically, unlike the time-consuming task of drawing each of the frames or moving and filming models little by little to show movement. However, even though it may seem easier for animators with the computer, complex movements in facial expressions make it difficult to make completely realistic human characters. To wrap things up, you should make sure that you understand the major steps in creating computer-generated characters: wireframing, shaping, rendering, and keyframing. I will give you a quiz on Friday with 4 short answer questions. So you should ask each other questions and fill in your notes to make sure you have all the information. Thanks for your participation today.